Ho ho ho, my fellow Jedi and Padawans, welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. Happy Christmas Day to y'all who celebrate it. Happy holidays to everybody, and thank y'all for being here as part of the channel. In honor of this cold winter day here on December 25th, we're going over a stasis build for our Titan here, utilizing the Hoarfrost Exotic Chest piece, as well as 2 stasis weapons and our Dead Messenger exotic grenade launcher. So getting right into the build here for our behemoth, obviously we're going to go with the Glacial Quake as our super. Now for our abilities, we're going with that towering barricade, with which our exotic, we're going to get that nice gigantic stasis crystal wall with the little gap in between it, giving us a bunch of potential with freezing enemies, a little bit of cover, as well as doing that damage. We're going to go with Strafe Lift as well as Shiver Strike for our abilities, and then I'm going with Glacial Grenade just because of the aspects and fragments that we're going to have on, as well as some mods that we have on our armor. This grenade definitely works the best. Now for our 2 aspects over here, we're going to go with Tectonic Harvest. So shattering those stasis crystals helps create us stasis shards, and that comes important later on. These stasis shards also grant us melee energy when we pick them up for us and our allies, so it's a nice clutch little feature that gives us back our abilities in our melee for us and our fellow guardians. Now we're going to go with Diamond Lance here because I love these for keeping enemies at bay, and we can create so many of them. So when we get that shatter or defeat targets with that stasis abilities, we create Stasis Lance, which we can throw or slam on the ground and freeze targets around us. So just another aspect of getting nice and frosty with this build, creating stasis freeze everywhere, creating those stasis shards, super important for this build. Now for our fragments right here, we got Whisper of Rhyme, so collecting those stasis shards grants us a small amount of overshield. This is helping us stay alive in that endgame content, and if we do get pretty weak, we can throw down that glacial grenade, hit some of the crystals, get those shards to proc, and bada bing, we got a little health regen on our hands. Next off, we got Whisper of Shards, so shattering those stasis crystals, temporary boost grenade charge rate, so it's a nice little benefit for the increased duration of the crystals, as well as getting our grenade back super fast with this build. Next for our fragments right here, we got Whisper of Change, so when we're near frozen targets or a friendly stasis crystal, we take reduced damage, once again helping us stay alive in some of that end game content because we're freezing everything around us with our stasis lance, with our weapons, with our grenade, everything like that. So it's a super easy to have this be procced. Next right here, we have Whisper of Conduction, so those stasis shards track to our nearby position. This again is going to come in handy for giving us that overshield, as well as some mods that we have on our armor pieces, which are using those as elemental wells. Now last but not least, for our fragments right here, we got Whisper of Fissures, so increase the size and damage burst of those stasis crystals when they are destroyed, as well as frozen targets. And like I said, with this build, frozen targets everywhere, so it's super nice for all the synergy that we have here, and we'll show you why as well with the weapons we have on. So playing into that stasis synergy, creating stasis crystals, we have our weapons right here with Syncopation 53 with Outlaw and Headstone enhanced. So getting those precision shots is going to give us a super fast reload speed, so we can keep getting those precision defeats because they also spawn us some nice stasis crystals with Headstone, creating that nice pair with our fragments with that extra damage on explosions, creating us shards, which we get for overshield. So it's a nice little extra oomph for creating a bunch of frozen enemies and stasis crystals around. Now we're going to throw on the Dead Messenger because again, this is great for that ad clear, and you can do some nice damage with enemies that are on the ground. Plus this season with Weaken Clear, this thing absolutely helps us do some crazy damage with our super as well as our sword. Now this year we do have a new version of this sword, but it doesn't have anything really new for me that I need on it. Plus I haven't got the roll with this with cold steel and relentless strikes that I want, because that cold steel on those heavy strikes and multiple hits, we get those nice slowed targets, and it can end up proccing us those diamond lances as well as crystals freezing targets. So it's super clutch for keeping us alive with that reduced damage next to frozen targets, and this thing slows some of those bigger chunkier enemies that really can do some damage. So it's nice at keeping that damage at bay as well as doing some nice DPS. Now moving on to our exotic and our armor over here. First off, we have Harmonic Siphon, so both our Syncopation and our Zephyr sword will be able to create us orbs of power. We're going to use sword ammo finder for that Zephyr as well as melee well maker. So when we do get that charged melee defeat with our nice shiver strike, we're going to create a stasis elemental well via that. Moving on to our arms right here, we have anti-barrier pulse and pulse loader, just helping us with that syncopation and dealing with some of those champions. We're also going to have on elemental armaments, so when we get defeats with either our Zephyr or our syncopation again, we have more chances of creating elemental wells as well of orbs of power via Harmonic Siphon. Now if we're going in where we want to do unstoppable instead of anti-barrier, we can take off all three of those end mods in pulse rifle, anti-barrier, and elemental armaments and throw on unstoppable grenade launcher for our dead messenger. Or even if we're looking for overload, we can throw on the new SMG, which is stasis in the prolonged engagement from Vanguard strikes, so we have a variety being able to switch off for all the champions. Now right here, the exotic that comes together and brings this build full circle is Hoarfrost Z. Now when we use our stasis subclass and we throw down our barrier, we're going to get a nice gigantic stasis wall in front of us that has those crystals that slows and freezes nearby targets. This also grants us some weapon reload speed, stability, and range when we're standing behind it. And with this build, breaking those walls and that crystals with your weapons gives us that nice stasis shards, which gives us an overshield, as well as counting them as elemental wells, which we're using in our mod right here for Font of Wisdom. So those elemental wells that we're creating via our weapons as well as our melee, and you'll see with those stasis shards will give us a nice increase to our intellect, which is super nice for getting that super and being able to use glacial quake, keeping enemies at bay, having even more stasis crystals around, and just keep on going with that stasis in mind and all of those shards, which are super important. And then we're just using sniper damage resistance and concussive once again to help us stay alive in some of that end game content. Moving on to our legs right here, we're going to use Absolution. So when we pick up those orbs of power from our super, our fellow guardians, as well as Harmonic Siphon, we're going to get all of our ability cooldown. So it's nice to have our shield back faster so we can create more stasis crystals, etc. Next, we're going to be using Font of Might. So both our syncopation and our Zephyr, when we pick up those elemental stasis wells, we're going to be able to have some bonus damage on both of those weapons, just adding a little spice and DPS to the build, since we're going to be creating a lot of elemental wells, specifically because of this mod that we have on our class item, Elemental Shards. So all of those stasis shards that we're creating for those overshields and that give us our melee back are also counting as stasis elemental wells. So that's absolutely crazy how many of these count and proc with those stasis crystals, and we're creating them via melee well maker as well as elemental armaments. Plus we got weaken clear on this, so our grenade launcher will weaken those enemies when we hit them. And like I said, that elemental shards is so key for this build, and just stasis in general, getting everything to proc together with Font of Wisdom, Font of Might, getting our overshield by collecting those stasis crystals, getting our melee back. So it's just a ability spam, stasis everywhere. We have diamond lances that we can pick up, our fellow allies could pick up, and then once again we're also allowing them to get back their melee ability by picking up those stasis shards, and we're creating them everywhere with this build. So this is a super fun, super efficient build for going in doing seasonal activities. You can go deal with champions, do nightfalls with us if you want. It's a nice, super fun build that works basically everywhere, has super good survivability, some nice DPS, and very good with helping our fellow guardians get abilities back and protecting each other with that add at bay and stasis freeze. So definitely give this a shot. Once again, happy holidays to all y'all. I appreciate you guys. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.